Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as financial advice. It is Setup Sunday. Once again, let's take a look at some charts and data for the coming week here. Over the course of the past 2 weeks, maybe it's been at least a week, we had 80,000 BTC sold into the market. Price barely moved. Now, what I overheard was somebody say this, not my opinion, of course. Somebody else was saying this was the worst executed OTC trade they had ever seen. You know, that's one opinion, right? But in any event, we're back at 119, 120, 118, whatever. We'll take that as a win. I love seeing guys cash out after a decade. Good for them, happy for them. In this case, it was over a decade, and we're going to continue to see this. We're going to see all sorts of craziness on chain. And when we get in-kind ETFs, which means you should be able to send BTC directly in some way to the ETFs, you are going to see even more craziness on chain. Some people are going to disagree strongly with the ability to send BTC to BlackRock directly to custody for them. Some people are going to hate that. Some people are going to love that. Okay. It's a big tent. Welcome to the maturation of an asset. Nothing is going to stop this. So you can love it or hate it. It's going to happen anyway. We, of course, had an EU deal get struck with the Trump team on tariffs. Markets seem to like this as futures was up to a new all-time high. And it's hard to be bearish on that. I don't know who needs to hear this, but all-time highs aren't bearish. Now, you can say it's overbought. You can say it's going to sell off to 0.5. But for the moment, certainly not bearish. Lots of worriers out there. We're climbing the wall of worry one day at a time. That's why I like to focus on price and trend. Still looks to be just fine on the cloud there. We, of course, have VIX at sub 15. A lot of people, again, on the worrying camp saying, oh, man, something's going to happen. VIX is too low. Market's too complacent. People are getting too exuberant. What are they supposed to do, right? We're having these market moving events finalize and crystallize, hopefully to some degree, depending on what Trump does. But in the tariff camp, one of the big buckets was certainly EU. We have China, we have North America, we have sectoral tariffs, all sorts of stuff still going on. But to have that off the list, ideally, hopefully, nothing's ever final with this administration, but it's hard to imagine VIX going higher on that news. This isn't bearish news by any means, and you're seeing that in price. What that means on the crypto side should be bullish continuation in a strong sense of the word, especially with BTC. The issue we have here now is everything else with seasonality and a few other macro stuff that I'll get to here. But looking at BTC ETFs, they have ground down to a halt, at least on a 1 week flow. Now, over the past, 10 weeks, it's been great. Probably one of, if not highest record-setting string of weeks here for any ETF. So I'd keep that in mind. That can change next week or after the quarter. You could imagine allocators sort of waiting to see what happens with events this week and then coming in, perhaps not this week, but the week after, and allocating, rebalancing, etc. on a quarterly basis. So we may still see flows relatively flat. And it sort of depends. Does price momentum push us higher above 120? Is that enough to pull more assets in quicker? Or does it take more money to push us higher now, and we're going to have to wait and see what comes into August? Just something to think about. ETH flows, of course, highest they've ever been since inception. Still don't have staking in ETH. ETFs, staking is not a use case. ETFs are not a use case, but it should help bring in the dollars, should help explain the story, and make the investment case stronger, which theoretically should eventually help flows keep going. So you've got this on BTC and ETH, you've got treasury companies on BTC and ETH, and many other altcoins continuing to buy, which some people are saying, this is so bearish, I can't believe it, everything's going to crash. That's one opinion, but on the other side of the coin, we still have money coming in. Dollars are coming into the ecosystem. That is not bearish. Once everybody has bought and it's crowded, that's bearish. Once money's coming out, that's bearish. We're not seeing that here. We're still seeing tons and tons of money coming into the ecosystem. As far as the list for the week, I'll put this in the description of the video, but Bianco put together a good summary. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have jobs, we have FOMC, we have earnings, we have QRA, which is the quarterly refunding announcement. Any one of these could be enough to tip the apple cart on God knows what, right? Who knows? I'm guessing Friday is going to be the most important. I'm kind of with Bianco here. On the jobs front, FOMC is probably going to be a nothing burger. They're certainly not cutting this month, most likely. So unless you have extremely high conviction on the charts or the assets you are trading, I would be very careful with the leverage this week, just because you don't know, literally anything can happen, right? Everybody's sort of on edge. So unless you have supreme conviction in something, maybe take it easy on the 50x leverage for the week, just because volatility might be higher than you expect. Of the earnings this week, we have Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Meta. That is 37% of the NASDAQ reporting, and a very high percentage of most people's portfolios actively or passively through indexes. Not expecting any goose eggs here, but again, you don't know. You don't know. You just don't know. On the crypto side, we have almost a new hash rate, all-time high. According to this tweet, it is a new all-time high, but we're close to a zettahash, which is good because the miners certainly aren't making money on transaction fees. They are making it on the difference between the cost of mining relative to the price of BTC. That'll obviously change in a bear market, but make hay while the sun is shining for the moment. I can't not point this out with seasonality. August and September, historically, on average, have been not so good, extremely not so good relative to the rest of the year. Yes, post-halving, we have seen positive August months. Certainly possible. Just food for thought here. August, September, wake me up when September ends is a thing. And again, we're sort of running out of time. Either we're just going to run it hot and keep going. This would be our 5th consecutive month, by the way, if August is bullish. So either we just run it hot or we can consolidate some more. Now, we certainly look ready to go on price. It doesn't look like we need more time up here. We consolidated previously for a couple months after bouncing from April. Before that, we consolidated for a couple months. This whole range has been a giant consolidation. Cloud is certainly bullish, has been bullish for quite some time. One little hiccup we had on Friday, if you're trading BITU on the legacy side like me, you sort of have to make a decision on whether or not that counts as a fractal breach. How you should trade this based on the system would be waiting for a daily close, because the daily close happens at different times of the day. And Saturday, Sunday, obviously there's no trading on BITU or anything in legacy. Then you have to make a judgment call. So I closed on Friday my leverage just on BITU with the assumption that if this goes above 120, I'll reopen, right? Who cares? Like, insurance isn't free, and you're saving yourself some potential weekend downside. So you certainly want to be in it if you think we're going from 120 to 150. You don't want to be in cash if that's your thesis here. Whether or not we try for that this week, I don't know, but it looks like we might. Anything above 120 should be go time based on these fractals. Daily close above 120, not a wick. Wicks don't count, and this measures still to 150, 160 based on the cup and handle. So still plenty of room. And you can also measure this flag here, this pennant, whatever, and that measures higher as well. We have the pitchfork, which gives us a little bit of room here still. So like I said on Thursday on the stream, I don't know why anybody would be bearish here, because again, we just absorbed 80,000 BTC, and it was like water off a duck's back. It was nothing. Like, yeah, we got held down for a while. ETH caught up, alts got happy, et cetera, but in the grand scheme of things, we are still in the same price we were for the past multiple weeks. Looking at the COT data, miners did, commercials did peel off a little bit here, as did large spec. I wouldn't read this as bearish either. I mean, this kind of vacillates all over the place. Still, in the grand scheme of things, very bullish, and how you want to see it on positioning. The interesting thing here is gold and BTC have had different slices of looking ready to go. Gold in the gray there, and then global liquidity with an offset. So if BTC does run above 120, you wouldn't expect gold to run at the same time. If gold runs above 3,400, you wouldn't expect BTC to run at the same time. So both are still kind of waiting to see, whose turn it is. Now, gold has been consolidating longer than BTC has, but that doesn't mean gold can't keep consolidating. Either way, liquidity is still pushing higher, and based on this rough schematic, gives us plenty of room to get to 150 by the end of the year. On the power law corridor, we haven't even hit the exponential phase or banana zone, whatever you want to call this. That would be this red shaded region. Hasn't even started yet. We are still trying to break out into insanity, and arguably the longer this takes, the better, because then we get potentially higher prices. There's also the argument to be made that we may not see that ever again just because of the institutional bid that's here relative to what we've seen historically, which was mainly retail. So we could still see those prices eventually, just not as quickly, because institutional money's smarter at getting into this market than retail would otherwise be. Retail has no money here anyway, so it's not going to be them pushing us higher. It's got to be the higher net worth individuals buying BTC up here. 2-year moving average multiplier, also plenty of room. Nothing is screaming close, it's overbought, it's over, the cycle's done. Not seeing that at all on any of these charts. Even on the MVRV in the yellow here, this is market cap versus realized value, which is the aggregate average of all coins moved on chain based on their price. So if market cap is several multiples above realized value, then you have a ton of unrealized profit sitting on chain. Currently we're at, 2.5 or something. Historically, this tops out between 6 and 8. Is it going to be diminishing? Maybe, sure. Is it going to start diminishing at 2.5? I don't think so. I think we're going to see something between 4 and 6 if we don't see higher than 6. So again, you can be bearish on this. You can be worried about this. I still think we see higher. There's also a list on CoinGlass, bull market peak indicators. Again, I'll put this in the description of the video. Tons and tons of stuff. You might not agree with this list or what they're referencing, but just for ideas, it's all here in one neatly packaged list. Looking at ETH, still looks fine. The issue you're getting into up here would be how overbought can we get before we need a period of consolidation. Generally, what we see in any bull market phase is series of consolidations, and those consolidations shorten over time. So if we're really being honest here, a week of consolidation on top of what we've already seen would probably be better in the long run than worse. Everybody wants everything today, and they're going to eat the entire bag of marshmallows versus waiting. This still measures on the cup and handle 42 to 5K. Yes, I know we have all these treasury companies buying ETH. I get it. Just have to be careful on the overbought side. We are pretty far away from the daily Kijun. I'm still holding a little ETH on my own for closes up here. So there's still plenty of room. Plenty of room, looks fine, nothing to worry about. You just have to be slightly cognizant of too much too soon. The ETHCOT data, less impressive, generally has been most of the time. It's hard for commercials to stay long. Maybe not as useful of a signal, but very interesting how this looked in the bear market. Just, red on the bottom. That's not what you want to see for positioning, looking at this data. And then the AI cloud, the AI backtested cloud, also starting to get a little nervous about this TKC clamp relative to price. So if we do see something between, 42 and 5K this week, I would imagine it would be some sort of ugly wick and require some consolidation before continuation. We've also got an execute on the validators to the tune of around 700,000 ETH. Now, 600,000 of that is just in Sun, and that's Lido. And as it says here, is depositing it into Aave. Still worth paying attention to and looking at just to see what's going on with the validators and the execute. And what you don't want is active validators topping out or declining. If you recall the Dash validators chart, that is in a multi-year drawdown. So to continue to see this grow is what you want to see, because it represents ETH being locked up to some degree. Yes, there's liquid staking tokens, but this generally means that people have a longer term view and they're not tourists. They're more buy and hold type investors. So ETH looks fine. No problems there. Sol looks fine. No problems there. Anything that is above the cloud gets the cloud's blessing and therefore my blessing. A lot of charts look like this, where they have this W component. They're above the cloud. They pulled back a bunch. They're trying to climb back. This still measures the 262 plus. I don't think I'll have any problem getting there by the end of the year, based on what we're seeing with these treasury companies also buying Solana. Whether this is a W, a cup and handle, an ascending triangle, whatever, right? It looks fine. No issues whatsoever here. But that's not really the question. The question is, where is your money best this week versus last week versus last month versus last year on a relative basis? If we look at Sol BTC, we're getting close, actually, for a potential in outperformance on the daily cloud. This also has this W component. Now, this may take another 2 months into Q4 to get rotated into. But the longer this can hold above the cloud, the better off the probabilities are for continuation relative to BTC. Now, Sol against ETH is not winning at all. And there's a lot of arguments to be made to just pay attention to ETH, doing nothing else until this definitively looks bearish. And I'm fine with that argument. I just know a lot of people are trading whatever they like, right? It's very tribal. Some people like certain things versus others. But if you're being honest with yourself, you're looking at this relative to everything, relative to ETH, relative to BTC, and you're trying to see where the puck is going to go. ENA has been great. It's a ETH beta, definitely late on this trade if you haven't been holding it for a while like I have. We're approaching a level where I'm going to take a majority of the position off. But this is just a viewpoint showing that it is possible to have a slingshot like this for any of these charts that all look fairly similar, where they have some sort of W and they are above the cloud, right? That's literally anything. You don't have to ask me in the comments, what about SPX 59, 60 million, 1,000? Same thing. What about Pengu? Same thing. What about Doge? Same thing. It's all the same. It all looks good. That isn't the question. It's not in a vacuum. It's on a relative basis. If you're in this versus Aptos, right? You're doing much better in ENA right now than Aptos. You're doing much better in ETH versus Sol over the past couple weeks. So you can still be right, but also be very wrong on a relative basis. This is AVAX. This is probably another one that's close. Link is there too. I don't think Link looks as good. What I'm looking for here is how close are you to the horizontal? And after the pullback that we just had, how close are you to recovering that entire pullback? And AVAX meets both criteria. It also hasn't moved as much as the big movers have. This is nothing to do with the fundamentals, right? We're talking about what has the ability to outperform on a relative basis just because it hasn't moved. There are only, there might be 5,000 cryptocurrencies, but there are only 20 core layer ones or whatever that people care about, right? So this chart does look very good in a vacuum. Now what you really need to do, here's Aptos as well. If we were picking between two, just the cloud, just price position, this is a wait and see chart, whereas this to me is ready to go just based on the cloud, right? Now, what would I need to see here? I need to see price above 520 or something. But I have no doubts in my mind that if the cycle continues long enough, if August and September aren't completely bearish, this stuff will get rotated into. Would I hold this today? I think you'd have a tough time making that argument relative to everything else, but I think it'll get there eventually. Now, will it underperform? Will it overperform? I don't know, but if most charts are at the equivalent of 10 to 15, and this one is at 5, eventually you should see some action here. So if you're looking at everything and you're honest with yourself and you're not being tribal about it, this is another example. SUI, winning on USD, you got a cup and handle, measures 5 to 7, great, whatever. Winning against BTC, above the cloud there. Winning against Sol, well, it's in a range, but it's on the right side of the range here. Not quite yet winning against ETH. You're getting close. You got evidence of a potential eventual edge-to-edge move here, right? But it's clearly in a downtrend against ETH. So some of these you do have to pick your poison. Do you just, again, sit in ETH and wait and sort of take profit from ETH into this, into AVAX, into Aptos? Do you just hold ETH and could care less, right? That's up to you. Do you trade ETH on leverage? It certainly complicates it, maybe to agree for most people, they just don't care and are better off not looking at it like this. But if you're trying to find the fastest horse, you need something like this where you're looking at everything. Because I have zero doubts that eventually Sol is going to outperform everything. Eventually, stuff down the list is going to outperform everything. Eventually, ETH is going to start underperforming everything. It's just a matter of timing. But SUI looks very good here relative to the group. Lastly, here, a few legacy items. DXY, still, is it a falling wedge? Is it an inverted head and shoulders? Is it going to break through the cloud here? Is it going to go back to 100? I don't know what it would take to actually push this higher. So I guess we'll know it when we see it. But from technicals, this still looks bearish. And if this looks bearish, anything denominated in dollars should go higher. That's it. That's all there is to it. We can talk about dollar milkshake. You can talk about whatever you want. But in the moment, for the next weeks and months, if this is bearish, crypto goes higher, legacy goes higher, everything goes higher. Whether or not that's good or bad, I don't know. This is not a moral judgment, but it is very good for your bags if the dollar is bearish. Here's gold again, just isolated. Is it an ascending triangle? Is it an equilateral triangle? Whatever. The cloud still likes it. You don't want this breaking up, right? This represents risk off. So in a sense, it's actually better that this has just been choppy and doing nothing and still looks weak-ish. Trend-wise, it's still fine. And there's a chance that August, September, crypto is just not the place to be, and it's gold's turn. And then come the end of September into Q4, it's party time again for crypto. Just something to consider. And lastly, on my TradingView profile, I finally remembered to post a bunch of charts: Galaxy, Oklo, Figs, Rivian, Sweetgreen, mRNA, even an old TIA chart. Here, let's look at this one. How did this one pan out? We broke out and didn't quite hit the level and gave it all back. So anyway, always fun to look at these months later to see how they panned out. But this group of 6 collectively is exactly the type of thing you want to look for on the cloud when a turn is happening on the trend. Will this be successful? Will it go anywhere? I have no idea, right? That's not what this is about. This is just setting yourself up based on probabilities. And there's even a chart somewhere here. Here's Hood from 2024. This Hood is at whatever it is today. But if you've got patience and you put in the time, I have no doubt in my mind, anybody can play this game. That's all I got for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.